Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you here for another episode. I got a question this morning, and I think it's a really good one to talk about during this podcast. And the question I got was this: should you pay down debt first, or should you save first? Which is really an interesting question. And so, it came from a person who's really good at money, but just was really stuck with this, I don't know whether I should pay down debt, and I don't know whether I should invest. What should I be doing all the time, Eric? And so I'm going to kind of give you the answer to that question, but I want you to think about it in terms and framework it by this idea of being bank ready. Because ideally speaking, if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, or maybe you're listening to this and you aspire to be an entrepreneur or just understand capital management to some degree, I want you to think about this idea of let's assume we take scenario one, where we pay off all our debt. And we say, look, let's just get all the debt paid off. We'll have no debt. We'll be good to go. And then we won't have to worry about money anymore, so to speak, right? It's no debt, so I don't have to make a lot of money. So I'm in this great shape. Okay, I get that. And by the way, some of this is, obviously there's case by case. Typically it's for something like this, I would look at their financials and craft a game plan. But I want you to kind of think through this process. So an idea of being bank ready, well, why would I want to be bank ready? Well, the bank wants to look at it and create a narrative. Is this person somebody that I would lend money to, just like you might do it for a friend? So they have no debt. And let's just say they have no debt, they have zero debt. Would you lend them money? Well, maybe, right? The fact that they've paid down debt is probably a good basis for that they can manage money well. The problem that just having debt paid off, just having that alone doesn't provide income, right? Just because you have debt paid off doesn't actually mean you have income. Now, you might have income with that associated with that asset, but let's just say it's all personal debt. Maybe it's a mortgage, a personal mortgage, which, by the way, I love paying off homes. I've always said before too, I said, if a financial advisor, and you've heard on this podcast, tells you not to pay off their home, run, because they're only looking for themselves, or they don't understand how it works. They don't understand mathematics. It really doesn't make sense. So just trust me on that one. If someone's telling you not to pay off your home, trust me, the sharks are swimming in the water. I'd be very careful. But let's just say you have no debt. You have no personal debt. Okay, great. But what's providing income then? So if we kind of look at it in a vacuum, at that point, from an income standpoint, then you would still have to go out and produce an income, which means you might have to go to work every day. Maybe you eventually count on Social Security or something, but you still have to grind, right? And even though you pay down all this debt, you're still in a place of having to grind. So while you have to grind maybe less, maybe not work as hard, you're still having to grind, which means that technically you haven't utilized capital well. And maybe you paid off some things, but you haven't really maximized the use of capital. So understand this concept. It's really an important concept, and I might have said it on the show before, but I'm always going to keep coming back to this. These are fundamentals. Debt is always less expensive. Equity is more expensive to use because you have an opportunity cost. You could be putting it somewhere else. Debt's inexpensive, but it's risk, right? It carries risk with it. So people like to get rid of debt. But ideally speaking, we have debt that's on personal items, but then we have also this capital investments. We have debt that actually gives us an income. And ideally speaking, we want to utilize other people's money, inexpensive, to go make money. And so if we can utilize someone else's money at 4% and I can go make 30%, well, that would make a lot of sense. I would still want to pay down that debt, by the way, but I would want to utilize somebody else's money, and then I could go take that money. For instance, a dental practice is a great example. You take $500,000 or whatever you ended up needing to start a dental practice, and it provides millions and millions and millions of dollars of revenue. You pay back the loan over a period of time. It costs you relatively interest-wise. It's very inexpensive to borrow that money, and yet your return is highly significant, 30% plus. And so now all of a sudden we utilize capital well. So that makes a lot of sense to be able to do that. Well, if we just pay off our debt and we have no income source, even with a practice, if you have no income source, right, you're still grinding every day at the practice. So ideally speaking, well, we also need to accumulate. And I go back to bank ready for a minute because of the fact that we need to have money for investment. We need to have money in investment. And in fact, if you go down to Financial Evolution, if you go back to my book, one of the things I talk about, and I have the book here in front of me because I was looking at some notes earlier. If you don't have this book, I would encourage you to get it. But the book, I talk about this idea of that money should be going three places. And I think it was a podcast or two ago, I talked about this idea of money should be going into personal development. About 10% should be going to personal development. But then we have savings and accumulation too. One of the reasons you want savings and accumulation, and one of the places I told you to have savings and accumulation in the book, is you need to have savings and accumulation in capital investments. But you also need to have savings and accumulation in passive investments. So one's active and one's passive. And so we have to figure out how to pay down debt and save and accumulate is the answer. Because we want to be bank ready. So if you go to the bank and you say, hey, listen, I want to go buy a new building. Okay, I've got a commercial piece of real estate I want to buy. They're going to say, great, we want a down payment of 20%, 25%, whatever it ends up being at the time you're listening to this podcast, because it does change. And you say, well, I don't have any money, but I have no debt. Will they lend you the money? And the answer is no. But you're like, but I was really good. All these years I was really like I borrowed money and I paid it off, and I paid off my home and I paid off my credit cards and I paid off my car. But you're not going to lend me the money. They're going to say no. But you don't have skin in the game. So then you lose out on the opportunity, right? So you lose out on this opportunity. Or even you can say, well, Eric, I don't want to buy real estate. That's fine. Look at stocks. Like you wanted to be in stocks. You wanted to buy stocks in 2008 and watch them fly through the roof, right? So in a sense, you've got to deploy capital somewhere for you to have this game so that eventually you don't have to work actively for the rest of your life, right? Eventually we want passive income. And the idea is to have so much darn passive income that you get to work and doing the things you love to do. So we want to pay down debt, but we also need to accumulate. Now go back to the bank again and say, okay, look, I have very little debt. I've paid off my home or paid off the majority of my home. I don't have any car payment. I've paid off all my practice or the majority of my practice. I've got cash flow, and I've taken that cash flow and I've invested here and here and here, and I've got this much in savings and accumulation. By the way, another thing, I always say I'm not big on 401ks. If you go to borrow money and you say I've got money in the 401k, here's a question. Do they count that? Not unless you're over 59 and a half. Why is that? Because you don't have access to it. Once again, 401k bites you in the butt. Once again, you're like, but I've saved all this money. I've been so diligent. I'm like, yeah, but you can't get access to that money to put as a down payment. Another reason I'm not a big fan of 401ks. So we have to pay down debt, and we have to accumulate. And it has to happen simultaneously. It literally has to happen simultaneously. There are people, the Dave Ramsey folks, that say, well, I'm just going to pay off all my debt. And certainly, by the way, if you wanted to, you could sit and say, well, I'm going to pay off all my debt and then I'm going to accumulate. My history tells me that's not the best way to do it. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it that way. But I'll tell you, there's something about momentum that's powerful. Like when people have like 5 credit cards, they always say to me, Eric, which one should I pay off first? And they always want to go to interest rate. And I never do that. I never say interest rate. I always tell them lowest balance. Why? Because there's momentum, right? So let's just say that you're the highest interest has the biggest balance, and it's 2 years in and you're still trying to get this thing knocked down. You feel like you're not getting anywhere. You're like, oh my gosh, I just keep giving all this money to my debt, but I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. So then you don't feel like you're winning. In life, you want to feel like you're winning. You want to feel like you're getting somewhere. So this idea is you've got to be able to make some progress. So like I would rather you pay off a credit card and then snowball that, what you're paying into another credit card and another one and another one. So we'd want you to be doing it that way. That's ideally what we'd want. So there's strategy here. I want you to pay down debt, and I want you to save and accumulate. One of the ways to do that is to set it up automatically. Now, I will give you a hint. For some of you, you have to set it up automatically. I mean, set up your mortgage payment to draft automatically and it to draft more than what you're required to pay. Automatically. By the way, you'll see, you'll set your lifestyle around it. I had a doctor come in like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and she said, well, yeah, I told her she's going to put $2,000 more on her mortgage. And she you should have seen her face. She couldn't believe I said that. And then she did it for a year. And I came back, I said, do you even feel it? She was like, no. She was like, I just do it. So we increased it another $2,000. By the way, in 3 years, her house paid off. So that's what the power of setting an automatic payment is that it automatically takes the money out of your hands and puts it somewhere else. Automatically drafting money into an investment account that is outside of your hands. Like that just happens, whether it's from your paycheck or from your distribution account or whatever it ends up being, it's automatic. And so we automatically draft this money. That's one way to do it, is just set it and forget it, so to speak, right? It's like the old infomercials there, right? Set it and forget it. You do, and what you'll realize is you build your lifestyle around the new fixed cost, whatever disposable income by the way, you'll eat all that up too. Parkinson's law. So you'll eat up that money too. But what happens is basically if you push this money out, what you'll find is the momentum of paying down debt and accumulating savings at the same time will give you so much money, better like mental strength than either being low debt but cash poor or having high investments but tons of debt, right? Imagine if you had $1 million in an investment account but you had $800,000 in debt. Would you feel that great? No, because you'd be like, well, I mean, net, it's not that much. So if we do both of them simultaneously, what you'll see is your investments going up and your debt going down, which will make you really excited. And then when you go to a bank, and I always think you need to think about this concept of being bank ready. Like always think of this concept of being bank ready. So if I walk in the bank and I say, look, here, I've got this much money. I've got 20% for a down payment to buy this business, buy this dental practice, buy this real estate, buy whatever it is. Like I've got the 20%. And on top of that, I owe nothing on my home and no personal debt. Do you think they would lend you the money? Well, of course they would, right? And so what ends up happening is, but the same thing as I said earlier, if you walk in with no debt but no money, they won't lend it to you either because you have to have skin in the game. So we want to be accumulating savings but decreasing debt. Now, the way I'd prefer you to do it was what I said on the other podcast, which is I want you to do it daily. Like I would, and you could set up automatically. Like I have automatic payments that kick, and then I do it daily. Like I will just look over and I will literally make a payment every day. And I've said before, like, you know how many days a month that Amex will take your money? Like every single day. They will be more than happy for you to make them a payment every single day. But what happens is people, they don't do that and they wait till the end of the month. They let this thing like just sit on them for 30 days. It just like overwhelms them. They're like, oh my gosh, I've got to pay that in 30 days. And instead of taking that mental heat off and just paying it every day and watch what happens. Like, look, you hear something like this and it might seem revolutionary to you. But take in a simple Excel document and listen to what I'm saying. Like go back, like put in your money in your account, your investments account, your debt, like list that on an Excel spreadsheet. And then I want you to open up in the morning, wake up tomorrow morning and open up your banking account and look at the money in there. You should know what bills are coming up and what you have to pay out. And then go to your investment accounts and go to like all of it. Like look at all your net worth, everything that's there. And then I want you to pay down some debt and I want you to put some money in investments. Watch, it doesn't have to be much. Watch what ends up happening. It could be $100, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000, it could be $100,000. But when you make movements every day, watch what ends up happening. You get what you measure. It becomes contagious. It's like, man, oh my gosh, look what just happened to my credit card balance. Whoa, look what just happened to my investments. And you'll start to see over time, you'll build a habit that literally will transform your financial life. It will transform your financial life, but it's not. Now, some people say, well, Eric, but I only take out money every 2 weeks. I don't care. Do it every day. Look, if you take money on the 1st and the 15th, you feel different on the 7th than you do on the 1st, right? So what ends up happening, it's the 7th of the month, and then the 8th of the month, and 9th of the month, and you go, gosh, I've actually paid all my fixed costs for my living, for instance, and I still got $3,000 sitting here, or whatever the number is. And so you go, well, I don't need all this. I mean, so then you transfer it and you get it out of your hands. Get it out of your hands. Get it out of your hands, because if not, you'll just spend it, right? You'll find some reason to buy something. Also, by looking at it every day, you know, they say, I'm telling you, to lose weight, all you got to do is look at the scale every day. If you're making that much progress to reducing debt, do you go buy stupid stuff? We all do it, by the way. We all buy things that don't make sense, but I'm just telling you, you'll make less of those decisions, right? Because you'll start to see the accumulation, you'll start to see the reduction in debt, and you'll start to go, no, I'm on a game plan here, like I'm kicking butt and taking names. By the way, then when you put money aside for the things that you want to buy, so for instance, if you want to go buy something, and you create an account and you put money in that account every single day for whatever that is, it's a new couch or whatever it is, and you put the money aside, then you can go pay for it cash and you don't feel bad. You're not just throwing it on a credit card. The same thing happens with the business. Whether it's a sterilization unit, new operatory, whatever it ends up being, I'm telling you, they'll keep you in debt forever. They'll keep giving you money, especially as a doctor. I'm telling you, they'll cover you up these days. It used to be that when you got to zero, they cut you off. But they'll let you fly right by zero. I had a doctor walk in one time who had $8 million in debt. $8 million in debt. Let that sit with you for a second. $8 million. So by making smart decisions, by measuring, now remember the 3 places we put money. So we're paying down debt automatically. But from a saving standpoint, I want you to save in 3 areas. If you'll recall, the 3 areas I tell you to put money in is 1, the most important area. This is like a pop quiz. The most important area you could put money is in your own personal education, your own financial education, I'm telling you right now, if you invested 10% of your total income into your growth and development, you would make more money than you could possibly imagine. You would literally blow by your current income levels into a way you couldn't even understand, but people won't do it. Put money into passive savings, money that you can accumulate. I'm not talking about the money sitting in your 401k that's shoved aside that you can't ever get access to. I want you to be able to get access to it in times of crisis, because that's what it's there for. You might end up using it for retirement, but that's what it's there for, is a passive income. You don't set it, forget it, leave it alone. And then there's money we put aside because we know we're going to go buy a building, buy a practice, buy something, and we put 3 buckets aside for savings, and we make those things and we put them aside and we make sure we accumulate in that way. If you do those 3 buckets, and if you're transferring money every day, I'm telling you, you can't mess this up. I'm telling you, you can't mess it up. I'm telling you, if you just do what I've told you in the last 2 or 3 podcasts, you can't mess this up. You can't mess this stuff up. Like, you would be in a completely different if you did it for 12. See, the problem is 80% of you that listen to this podcast, and I don't want to be, it's just the truth. I mean, I've done the numbers too. It's an 80-20 rule. 20% of you listening right now will actually do what I'm telling you to do. 80% of you will listen to it and go, I don't know, let me ask my friend. Let me go ask my financial advisor. Let me go ask my banker. So you won't do it. And even though I've transformed thousands of people's lives into having literally more people that I know have transferred their passive income, not even active, passive, into 6 figures, I couldn't even tell you. That means per month they're getting 6 figures in passive income. Guarantee your financial advisor hasn't done that. I'm telling you the truth and the way to do it. And so by putting money in those areas, we can utilize and capitalize that money to transform your life. So here's the message on this podcast, and here's what I want you to take. So transform yourself and your financial life by paying down debt and accumulating money at the same time. Do some of it automatically. Make sure it's automatically happening. You don't have to touch it. You just look over and it's taken out of your hands before you have the ability to take it. And then some of it I want you to do actively. I want you to do daily management, daily management. It's a daily discipline. It's like brushing your teeth. Every day you look at your money. Every day you look at your credit card. Every day you pay balances. Every day you put money into investments. Look, I got, it doesn't have to be big either. I mean, sometimes it can be small. I got this little tiny check that I just got, came in the mail today. It was nothing. I mean, and I took it and it was just from a passive income source. And sometimes the checks are $6,000 and sometimes they're $100 or whatever they are. And I just took it and deposited in my investment account. I don't go buy stuff with that. And there's a lot of different passive income sources you have, and you just put the check, I just put it away. Now, sometimes that check might be big and I might put that away too, right? I just got $1,700 or I think from the government or whatever it is. I don't know, $1,500, $1,700, whatever it was in this, you just put it away, right? Just you could go. Now, ideally speaking, I could take that money, which is really what we should be doing, and a lot of us is spend it in the economy to push up the economy. I agree with that. But I'm just telling you, if I get it out of my hands, I won't spend it. Now, what I'm doing is setting you up for the future. Keep in mind, this conversation is not the end. It's the beginning. I'm putting you in a process, in a system that can transform your financial life forever. So start doing what's on this podcast. Make sure you do it. And if you do, I'm going to continue to give you the pieces of information that can transform your life. If you have not gotten Financial Evolution, you need to go get it. It's on Amazon. I think it's $24. If you won't put $24 into your financial future, then you should probably stop listening to this podcast, to be completely honest with you. I mean, it's $24. Go buy, go buy the book, read it, ask questions, send them in. But it's taking someone like me who's had thousands and thousands of experiences of looking at financial situations and putting it into book form, which is really powerful. You need to read as many books as possible, not just mine, but as many books as possible. People have put their life stories out there for you to see and read and figure out where they did it right and where they did it wrong. And that's what I've given you in Financial Evolution. So look, I hope you've enjoyed this. Make sure you're doing these things. This is not just for me. This is not just for talking. This is for you and your life and your future and your impact and generational wealth. So I hope you're doing what we're talking about and not just listening. Hope you've enjoyed. Listen, if you should take this information. As you can see, listen, the vast majority of my audience are dentists, but you also need to understand that so many people need this information. And so my niche in business, we call it vertical. The vertical that I speak in is the dental world. But that doesn't mean this information is literally for any business owner, anyone who has an entrepreneurial spirit, or anybody, period. So make sure you share. It's one of the best things you can do is form mastermind groups and talk about this stuff and talk about the information and bring it up and make sure if you're on YouTube watching this, if you're not on YouTube, go on YouTube and watch this. If you're just on the podcast, I think there's something about watching things sometimes, right? That there is something too about listening and just listening on the ride in. If you're listening to ride in, please don't watch on YouTube. Okay. But there's something about going on YouTube and watching something like this, right? You get to see my facial expressions, right? You're missing some of the piece by just listening to it. So when you can, I would go on YouTube and I would bring it up and I would like it, share it, pass on the message. One of the greatest things you can do is give people the gift of financial knowledge. So hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.